I was in and out of that West Virginia game. That was a noon Eastern time game, correct? Yes.
Yep.
A lot of good games on at noon. I was in and out trying to keep track of what was going on. And even though Oklahoma never pulled away, of course, there were several spots in that game where I thought they had an opportunity to seize control of that game, and they didn't. The portion of the game that I watched, which again was like 5 plays and then out for a while and then 5 plays, they always look like the better team. They always look like they should be gaining control of the game, and it never happened. And then they lose it late, and they come back with a loss for the first time against West Virginia.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. I think it's, and I think that makes it even more disheartening in the end to know that. And Venables said it best after the game. He said, no disrespect at all to West Virginia and their football team and what they brought, but he thought Oklahoma beat Oklahoma today. And so, very similarly speaking, this team seems to just continue to find ways to lose, even in close games. When you think about this game, the 3-point loss and another 3-point loss last week against Baylor, and then you had the close loss against Kansas State early on in the year. So, I think that this team is about, what would that be, 13 points away from being right where Oklahoma State's at this year, and at more of a 7-3 type of season in terms of where they're at right now. Or possibly even 8-2 right now. So those 3 games, if you win those 3 games, it looks a lot different than what it looks like now. Which I think, realistically, that would probably be a little bit of fool's gold, right? Just because, I think going through this season last year, where it was really kind of the transverse of this in terms of Oklahoma was in a lot of close games, but they were able to find ways to win a lot of those games, which I think, Mark, it kind of masked some of the issues with the roster that's that's been in place over these last couple of years. So, yeah, I mean, I think to your point, Oklahoma had a 10-0 lead early on in the game, had an opportunity, and had an opportunity to kind of bust that door open, so to speak, in terms of getting a very sizable lead and putting a lot of doubt in West Virginia, but they were able to get a pretty good long kickoff in their last possession of the first half, and then they went down and scored a touchdown. Obviously, Oklahoma returned returned that to make it 12-6 at halftime, but still, it's just one of those teams that's unable to play complementary football in games where we've typically seen Oklahoma struggle on the defensive end. The offense has played well enough to win, in a couple of those games, right? When you look at putting up 35 points against Baylor, you look at, I think it was 34-35 against Kansas State, I should say, early on in the year. And then this year, this game, the defense played, not perfect, but better than they have been in the past. So, and I think one of the big things, Oklahoma was 1 for 11 on third down conversions, 0 for 3, I believe, on fourth down conversions. West Virginia was, I think, 4 for 4 on fourth down conversions in this game, 4 for 4, 4 for 5, and so just opportunities to get off the field, opportunities to to put yourself in position to win the game, and they weren't able to. So like I said, it just seems to be kind of more of the same over these last few weeks, just finding different ways to lose. And I know that Venables has caught a little bit of heat for his decision late in that game. I mean, I still think that's the right decision, honestly. I mean, I know the weather was a little bit inclement in terms of the wind and the rain, but you've got I think a 43, 44-yard field goal, which was perfectly within Schmidt's range, throughout the year. And, they weren't, to my previous point, one of 15 on third and fourth down conversions. So I don't think Venables and or the coaching staff had a lot of faith that they would be able to convert on that fourth down. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that decision whatsoever. I think that was the right decision to make, and just weren't able to execute that, and that's what it seems to come down to. They've whether it's untimely penalties, giving up fourth down conversions. But you go into a game and you run for what Eric Gray had over 200 yards rushing. You run for 230, 240, I think where they were at. You force you win the turnover battle +2. You assume in most games where you're fairly equal in talent that you're going to win that game. But again, they're finding ways to lose, which is obviously unfortunate that this team, I think, really, really needs something good to happen over these next couple of games and make sure that maybe they get some of the bounces go their way or just execute the way that they need to in these timely situations.
Yeah, not to cherry pick through the box score and just take the ones that favor Oklahoma, but I think this pretty much shows the the frustration of the final outcome of this game, especially for if you take an 8.5. I don't know that these are equally talented teams. They might have played the worst team in the Big 12, and I know that that's not a drop off the cliff like worst team in the SEC, worst team in the Big 10. They're all so clumped together, but Iowa State's got the worst record, but West Virginia went to Iowa State the week before and lost by 17 points. Like, this West Virginia team's not been playing well.
Mm-hmm.
And Oklahoma's an 8.5-point favorite on the road. So Vegas thinks that they're substantially better. As you noted, just the 2-0 turnover ratio for an 8.5-point favorite would seem to be like game over. They're going to win like 90% of the time. The team that wins that 2-0 wins 80% of the time anyway. But if it's an 8.5-point favorite, they probably win more like 90% of the time. And then if you told me Eric Gray's running for 8.5 yards per carry, 211 yards, and JT Daniels goes 7 for 12 for 65 yards with a pick, and the backup comes in and doesn't do much of anything, but you add all that up, and it just seems like, my goodness, how did they blow this game?
Yeah, I mean, and I think the biggest thing that I was surprised about, Mark, is the West Virginia defense has been very, very poor, throughout this season. As you'd mentioned, I think they gave up, what was it, in the 30s to Iowa State last week, and
scoring against no one.
Yeah, and just have not been successful, really with any kind of consistency stopping teams. And so, and yes, I get that the weather played a little bit of a factor into what that looked like, but Oklahoma only scoring 20 points in this game was very much a surprise to me.